Your Excellency, Professor Yoshino, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to EVA. I want to start by expressing EVA's warmest congratulations for Professor Yoshino for being awarded the Nobel Prize just a few days ago. We are very, very proud to have you here with us today. EVA, as I think most of you know, is an academy with a mission to advance technological and economic sciences, but not only that, but also the development of industry and business. So we have a role in between the academia and the rest of the society, including industry. And this is something that we have been doing almost exactly 100 years. So we have had a very big celebration this year to kind of remind us of our history of 100 years. We are building bridges. We like to think of ourselves like a bridge builder or platform between research, business, and policy making. And the aim, of course, is that we can help build Sweden's competitiveness in concert with sustainable development, which is, of course, very important for the future of the whole planet, if you like. And in this work that we have carried out for 100 years and that we will continue at least another 100 years, I hope 1,000 years, international collaboration and integration of international perspective in our work has always been very important for EVA. And it's rapidly, of course, becoming even more important in these days when globalization has been ongoing for decades already, and also in the face of these grave global challenges that we are facing now, especially concerning the climate change. These are the kind of challenges no country or no person or no community can solve alone. We have to collaborate. And when 1981, EVA founded what today is the Science and Innovation Counselors in Sweden, where we send kind of ambassadors of technology around in different parts of the world, which has been actually a very important part of Sweden's innovation and research system. And even preceding those ambassadors, we already had personnel in Tokyo in 1967, which is also the sign of these close bonds between Japan and Sweden, and also long-term bonds. So we have nourished these diplomatic relations between our two countries for over 100 years, last year being the 150th year for our relations. So the collaboration between EVA, the Sweden-Japan Foundation, the Japanese Embassy, and the Japan Society for the Promotion of Science has been a success, I think, for almost a decade now. And today, of course, is no exception. So we look forward to continue this collaboration, friendship, and also the very, very inspiring scientific dialogue. So I welcome you once again, and then it is my pleasure to welcome His Excellency Shigeyuki Hiroki, who is the ambassador in the Embassy of Japan here in Sweden. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Dr. Akira Yoshino, Honorary Fellow, Asahi Kasei Corporation, also this year's Nobel Laureate in Chemistry. Professor Tura Terry, President, Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering of Sciences. Dr. Susumu Satomi, President, Japan Society for the Promotion of Science, JSPS. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you today at the opening of the EVA JSPS seminar, Future Battery Technologies and Ecosystem. I must confess that I'm surprised by the farsightedness of EVA to choose Dr. Yoshino as the main speaker of today's seminar long before Nobel Committee announced the the name of the 2019 Nobel laureates. I'm quite excited to be able to listen to the state-of-the-art lectures on lithium-ion battery research today. I should especially thank Dr. Akira Yoshino for spending some time with us to speak today, despite of his busy schedule in the Nobel Week. I would also like to express my heartfelt appreciation to the other speakers for participating in today's event. In recent years, interactions between Japan and Sweden in the field of science and technology have become increasingly active. Let me give you a few more examples. Last month, a scientific collaboration program between ESS and JPAC was launched, which is expected to increase the exchange of researchers between Japan and Sweden. In addition to that, a Mirai seminar was held at Uppsala University and Stockholm University, where a total of 15 universities and over 100 researchers and university officials from Japan and Sweden gathered and discussed their future cooperation. These interactions no doubt stimulate discussions and thinking within each country's government as well as in its scientific community. I believe it can also lead to collaboration at various levels. Today's event is another example of the active interaction that we are seeing in recent times. It is therefore with much satisfaction that my embassy can co-host today's event in collaboration with EVA, JSPS, Sweden Japan Foundation, and SSF. Let me conclude my remarks by expressing my earnest hope that today's event will be a great success. I look forward to listening to the lectures. Thank you very much.
And next on stage, opening words from Dr. Susumi Satomi, who is the president of the Japan Society for Promotion of Science. Welcome on the stage.
My name is Susumi Satomi. I am the president of Japan Society for the Promotion of Science. First of all, I would like to extend to you all my heartfelt congratulations on holding this IVA JSPS seminar, welcoming distinguished researchers from Sweden and Japan. Before we begin, I would like to say a few words. Let me first express my gratitude to Professor Tura Terry, President of the Royal Swedish Academy of Engineering Science. His Excellency Shigeyuki Hiroki, Ambassador of Japan to Sweden, and Mr. Edvard Fridwood, Secretary General of the Sweden-Japan Foundation, and Professor Lars Hultman, Chief Executive Officer of the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Research. I very much appreciate the generous support you have accorded us in organizing today's event. This seminar has been held since fiscal year 2013 with the cooperation of our partner institution. I am very pleased that this 10th seminar is being held here today. I was very fortunate to be given the opportunity to attend the Nobel Prize award ceremony on December 10th. The fact that Dr. Yoshino was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the development of the lithium-ion battery shows the world not only the high level of Japan research standard, but is almost great source of pride and encouragement for Japanese researchers, especially young researchers. Today, I feel very honored to have the opportunity to hear Dr. Yoshino's lecture. I am also looking forward to hearing from other researchers from our two countries about their research on lithium-ion battery and about product development in the private sector. JSPS carries out various programs to promote scientific exchange with Sweden. They include the bilateral program and multilateral program through which research hubs are built among 3 or more countries, and, of course, our fellowship program to invite overseas researchers to Japan. In fiscal year 2018, 62 Japanese researchers went to Sweden under the SPS program, and 70 researchers came to Japan from your country. Along with promoting scientific exchange between Sweden and Japan, JSPS supports creative endeavor carried out based on researchers' own free idea and challenging endeavor taken on by young researchers. JSPS works to contribute to global development by advancing scientific research, which is the wellspring of the innovation. At the same time, we are working to enhance our activity, such as by holding academic seminars like this one in Sweden, centering around our Stockholm office. Lastly, I'd like to extend my gratitude to each of you for taking time to participate in this seminar, and look forward to it being fruitful experience for all of you. Thank you very much for attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind opening words. Now it's my pleasure to invite to the scene Mr. Bo Normark, who is the member of our academy. He belongs to the Division of Electrical Engineering and Industrial Strategy Executive. He is also in InnoEnergy, which is a European program in the field. He is going to be moderating this event, so we are getting closer to the science. So please, welcome Bo Normark.
Thank you. It's an honor to be back. As was mentioned already, 2013 we had a seminar here at IVA with Dr. Yoshino on lithium-ion batteries. We were planning to have a follow-up seminar on September this year, but we had to postpone it until today for good reasons. What are some practical questions before we start? There will be a Q&A session after each talk, and if you want to have a question, raise your hand, and those sitting in the chairs in the room, there are microphones between the chairs, and please use them because this is a live stream seminar, so people can hear what your the questions. And with that, I think we can move forward, and I look forward to now welcome Dr. Yoshino, now as Nobel Prize laureate, and not just Dr. Yoshino as last time. Please welcome. And we are listening to you talk about the current situation of lithium-ion batteries and future.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nomak. Very kind introduction. My name is Akira Yoshino from Japan, and it reminds me the 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I came here in the 2013 to make lecture in this room. This was the first joint meeting between IBA and Japan. And next year, 2014, Professor Akasaki came here to make a lecture. And in the same year, he received Nobel Prize in Physics. No? And this year I received. I believe this joint meeting is very, very important gate to Nobel Prize. And also, in 6 years ago, I made in lecture. The title is almost same, current situation of lithium battery and the future. I made and 40 minutes or 50 minutes, I made lecture. And after my presentation, someone in this room asked me, there is no industry in Europe of lithium battery. And he said, I feel very sad because of there is no battery industry in Europe. The reason why there is no battery industry in Europe was his question to me. Now I answered, it is very easy. The answer is very easy. In case of mobility application, it is not required battery industry in Europe because mobility devices such as a cell phone or smartphone or laptop computer does not manufacture in Europe. Of course, so it is not necessary to manufacture lithium battery in Europe. But in case of electric vehicle application, of course, in 2013, there is no EV application at the time. So if in future, if the application for electric vehicle appeared in future, it is necessary to manufacture lithium battery in Europe because in Europe, automobile manufacturers continue to make cars. So it is required to manufacture lithium battery in Europe. And this was my answer. Today, I visited in the morning. I visited Northvolt. They made a very, very big test plant, not a commercial plant, but very, very big. I misunderstand. That will be a production line. But he said, not, it's a test line. Okay, so I want to talk my presentation. First, my story. I was born in Osaka Prefecture in 1948. And I enjoyed playing outdoor. And when I was around 9 years old, my teacher recommended to read some books. This book was The Chemical History of a Candle, written by Michael Faraday. And so I read this book, of course, Japanese versions, and became fascinated with chemistry. Oh, thank you. Ooh. Thank you. Thank you. the four best decisions I made in my life were shown here. This is my to study quantum organic chemistry in Kyoto University. I'm here. Yeah, very young, of course. Next is to work at Asahi Kasei Corporation. I entered to Asahi Kasei Corporation in 1972. Next, in 1975, marriage. A wonderful woman, my wife, Kumiko-san. And started basic research on lithium battery from 1981. This is my short story. Next, I want to move to next topics, the brief history of the lithium-ion batteries. And this is the definition of the lithium battery. I will read a non-aqueous dischargeable battery operating on the principle of electrochemical intercalation, having a metal oxide containing lithium ion as cathode, and carbonaceous material as an anode. This is the correct definition of lithium-ion batteries. The Witting-Hahn proposed principle of electrochemical intercalation. This is his contribution to the lithium-ion battery. So, and John Goodenough, world first, proposed this material, cathode material, metal oxide containing lithium ions is very important point. Containing lithium ion. This is very, very important point. John Goodenough proposed world first this metal oxide containing lithium ion as cathode. This is his contribution. And carbonaceous material as anode is a very, very important point for lithium-ion batteries, and the combination of this cathode material and this anode material. This is the lithium-ion batteries. Here, 3 Nobel Prizes in chemistry, especially an anode material of lithium batteries. One from the orbital theory in 1981 by, and also 2000, conductive polymers, polyacetylene. And this year, lithium-ion batteries. Especially the anode material of a lithium battery is a very deep relationship with first conductive polymer, polyacetylene, and also this from the orbital theory. So I want to talk next to brief history of lithium battery. I started the basic research on this new material, polyacetylene, not research on battery. Right? So this polyacetylene is has very many functions, such as electroconductivity or other many functions. And these functions will be predicted by from the orbital theory. So it is very important, these 3 Nobel Prize. And additionally, cathode technology, also in principle of electrochemical intercalations. So lithium battery is very, very fortunate fellow because he is supported 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 laureates. Very, very fortunate fellows. And the start of my research was polyacetylene, this compound discovered by Professor Shirakawa, and also they received Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2000. And this is a polyacetylene. This is polymer, plastics. But it looks like metal, very, very shiny. And I started using this material to prepare this polyacetylene in my own laboratories. And then, what is the best and suitable application of this material? There are many functions. One of the functions was electrochemical properties. This polyacetylene can absorb anion, also cation. So it means this polyacetylene has a candidate for a new battery material. And so at that time, I researched the situation of battery industry at that time. This is a classification of battery. There are 4 kinds of battery in the world. First, primary battery or secondary battery. Also, this is electrolyte. Electrolyte means a solution containing ions. And conventional electrolyte is shown here, aqueous electrolyte. Aqueous means solvent is water. And prime battery using aqueous electrolyte is shown here, typical dry cell. Also, the second batteries, lead acid battery, nickel cadmium battery, such as all use aqueous electrolyte. And water is a very, very convenient solvent for electrolyte solutions because water is very cheap, and also the in water the ion is move very, very quickly. But as you know, the water is decomposed if over 1 voltage supply decomposed to hydrogen and oxygen. So it is impossible to create a new battery which has whose electromotive force over 1.5 volt. But on the other hand, to make small and light batteries, increasing of electromotive force is required. So the next electrolyte system is non-aqueous electrolyte. Non-aqueous means that they replace water with organic solvent. And in case of primary battery using this non-aqueous electrolyte solution, commercialization was succeeded in very, very smoothly. So it realized in case of primary battery, small and light primary battery was realized. Then many people want to use secondary battery, which is light and small. But commercialization of secondary battery using non-aqueous electrolyte was very, very difficult because of the anode materials. So I decided to apply this polyacetylene to anode material for secondary battery because the people of battery industry wanted new anode material. And and I estimate performance as anode. This polyacetylene has very, very good performance. So the next step is combination of cathode material. This compound was proposed at the time as cathode material as secondary batteries. At the definition of lithium battery, I said cathode material metal oxide containing lithium ion. It is very, very important point. But in these groups, all compound does not contain lithium cations. So it is I was very frustrated because it is impossible to make a battery because of, in case of this PM means polyacetylene. Polyacetylene does not contain lithium cation. Also, this compound, titanium dioxide, disulfide, does not contain lithium cation. So, of course, it was not possible to make battery. At the time, almost same times, Professor Jong-Gun found this compound, lithium cobalt oxide. This is the world's first compound, metal oxide containing lithium cation. So when I read this paper, I immediately realized this was just I wanted. And so prepare this compound and combine with polyacetylene, and then this new battery system was invented in 1983. And I found this new battery systems and evaluated to make such a prototype cell. This new battery systems, there's two. It is required two performance. First is light. Second is small. Based on weight and based on volume. This compatibility is very, very important. But unfortunately, this new battery system weight almost perfect. weight was almost 1/3 compared with nickel cadmium batteries. That's okay. But volume, almost same with nickel cadmium. So to some customers, I visited and discussed about the new battery systems, which is important, volume or weight. The answer is volume. So in this battery systems, polyacetylene was plastic, so the specific gravity is very, very small. It's the reason why it is this new battery system satisfied based on weight. That is very clear. Also, the reason why the volume is not reduced because of gravity, specific gravity. So I should change this material, which has whose specific gravity over 2.0. This is calculated. If this new material has specific gravity over 2.0, it became possible also weight and volume. So this is a reason why I abandoned polyacetylene, specific gravity. I estimated many kind of carbonaceous material which was commercialized at the time, but no good performance. And I obtained a sample of VGCF. VGCF is a new carbon fiber. And on same Asahi Kasei Corporation, another laboratory developed this new carbonaceous material, VGCF. This VGCF is a very special crystalline structure. So I heard someone research very special carbonaceous material. So I got a sample of this VGCF. This VGCF has a very good performance. So the conclusion was it is possible to replace polyacetylene with carbonaceous material, but this carbonaceous material has very special crystalline structures. This is answers. So by this fact, I replace the polyacetylene to carbonaceous material. This is the current lithium-ion batteries. This new battery system was invented in 1985. So the next step is commercializations. Of course, there are many issues to overcome. As I said, the commercialization of secondary battery using non-aqueous electrolyte, this area, the reason of the anode material. issue was safety. Because of at that time, the anode materials metallic lithium as anode. As you know, metallic lithium is very reactive materials, especially in case of after the charge or discharge, repeating, very reactive. So it caused safety issues. It was fatal issues. So I should improve this new battery system, overcome safety issues. If this new battery system overcomes safety issues, proceed development. But if not, abandon this project. So I made a prototype lithium batteries and carried out a safety experiment. It is this is drop test. This is iron block. This is battery. Would have a very simple safety test. Difference battery is shown here. Battery using metallic lithium as an anode. This is a primary battery, and this is a prototype lithium batteries. First, I want to show you this test result. Okay, this is primary battery. Next, lithium batteries. This is lithium battery. If in this safety test, lithium battery caught fire, I believe it was not it was impossible to commercialize new secondary battery system. So I believe this is a moment when the lithium-ion battery was born. Next, I want to move to next topics. This is the reason why we, Professor Goodenough and Whittingham and I received Nobel Prize in Chemistry. The first reason is mobility society. The invention of lithium battery contributed to realize current mobility society. This is the first reason. The second reason is sustainable societies. The invention of lithium battery expect to realize mobility sustainable society. In future, it was not realized yet. So in future. I want to talk about the role of lithium battery towards a sustainable society. This is this graph shows this bar shows the number of patent application in Japan related lithium batteries. And this is a short history of started in 1981 and invented lithium battery in 1985 and commercialized early 1990s. And market growing of market started from 1995. 1995 was very, very important year for us because from this year, IT revolution started. Typical symbolic matter was the release of Windows 95. So the lithium battery was born and grown with this IT revolution. This is this is track record of IT revolution. And recently, the number of patent application increasing again. What happened? So this is the first reason to receive Nobel Prize in Chemistry. This is first, the realization of mobile IT society. This is the second reason. Expect to create a sustainable society in near future. This is the second reason. So I want to talk about this next revolutions. The item of next revolution is environment and energy. So I named next revolutions is ET revolution. I want some data. This graph shows the capacity-based and market scale in each lithium battery market. And this bar shows the mobile IT, application for mobile IT in 2010, almost 100% mobile IT. And this red bar is application for vehicle, electric vehicle. And now, application for electric vehicle exceeded mobile IT. And this is expected in 2025. It's mainstream or becomes electric vehicle. But unfortunately, in 2025, ratio of electric vehicle on new cars only 15% in this 2025. So it is very important what happens after 2025. It is very important, I think. I'd like to change the subject a little bit. Environmental issue is very, very serious problem for humankind. Very, very difficult to solve these environmental issues. We continue to have a trilemma between environment, economy, and convenience. If priorities only on the economy in this way, if priority on only convenience this way, if only environment this way, so this is trilemma, very, very nervous issues. So the answer is very, very simple. Harmony between environment, economy, and convenience. Is it possible? I believe possible. This is our duty to create a sustainable society. And finally, I will show the, but this is very difficult to explain by PowerPoint, slideshow, or oral. So I made a video movie, New Car Society in future. And I made this movie last year, but I prepared, I remade for this Nobel lecture the English version. So please watch this movie around 6 minutes. You can understand the future car society. Important point is this one, case and mass, to predict, a buzzword to predict the future car society. Okay.
High-performance rechargeable batteries, electric vehicles, artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things. A combination of these technologies will soon bring about a radical upheaval that goes beyond what we can imagine today. Energy is changing. The ET revolution will reshape the world. We face challenges of resources, the environment, and energy. Innovative technology is arising for the environment and energy. The ET revolution. Leading the way in the ET revolution that will impact the whole of society is the automobile. By understanding the evolution of the automobile, we can see the complete picture of the ET revolution. What changes will this revolution actually make in society? In 2030, people's lives are centered on the AIEV here in a metropolis shaped by the ET revolution. Everywhere you look, there are AIEVs, autonomous vehicles driven by artificial intelligence. When you want to go somewhere, you call one like a taxi, and the nearest AIEV comes to pick you up.
Good morning, Akira. It seems you were late last night. How do you feel?
Oh, I didn't get enough sleep. I feel a little sluggish.
The fresh juice stand everybody's talking about is nearby. How about a rejuvenating beverage?
Say, that would be a nice topic of conversation at the office. So fresh kiwi is the most popular. Okay, I'll have that.
You want this one?
Please. AIEVs directly connect users with establishments and services, such as restaurants, cinemas, and hospitals, playing a vital role as a hub of the economy. Inside the autonomous vehicle, AI provides various services including language study, fitness, and shopping, tailored to the user. In a society where all the vehicles are autonomous, there are no accidents or traffic jams. After dropping the user off at the destination, the AIEV goes to a charging station or to pick up another user. Such AIEV services are provided for a monthly fee, like a smartphone. Users choose the provider and plan that suits their own needs. Rather than cars owned by each person, there are AIEVs shared by everyone. This reduces the cost for each person to 1/7. This new kind of transportation is available not only in big cities, but also in rural areas. With shared AIEVs, there is a new social structure with extremely little environmental burden. In addition to carrying people around, AIEVs play the role of carrying energy to places that need it. AIEVs spread throughout the whole society store enough electricity to last for 10 hours if 50 power plants shut down. Charging and discharging are simple. Fully automated recharging and discharging stations are everywhere. When the power supply is stable, the AIEVs all charge up. When power is in short supply, they discharge wherever needed. Together, they function as a giant reservoir of energy that is drained and refilled. This function serves to overcome the fluctuation of renewable energy supply. Dispersed throughout society, AIEVs form the infrastructure that allows power to be bought and sold, which has a huge economic benefit. Sharing things with minimum use of resources, using energy efficiently, reducing the supply volume. This is not only friendly to the environment, but also reduces costs. The social transformation of the ET revolution extends beyond AIEVs. The ET revolution lets people live in comfort effortlessly, without restraint or frugality. This era is coming.
Well, what kind of performance would be required of batteries for the AIEV? We are currently within reach in terms of energy density and cost. However, durability is a big hurdle that needs to be overcome. This will be necessary for batteries to enable the energy revolution. Together, let's develop batteries that can change the future. Again, in this movie, the trilemma between the environment and the economy and the convenience balanced. This is the ideal future society. This is a sustainable society, I believe. Oh, sorry. Okay, just that time of my presentation finished. I wanted to explain additional explanation, benefit of AIV, and this is a development roadmap of autonomous. And this is why became cheaper. The reason is very, very simple. The concept of sharing. And what kind of battery required in this society is shown in the that movie. Okay, this is the final slide. Innovation of all around will enable a sustainability society to be achieved very, very soon, I believe. And this said the battery will play a central role. This is my vision. Thank you very much for your attention.
So thank you very much. I think we have had a good example of what we call sector coupling between the transport and the power sector. So I will open up for a few questions, not too many, we have limited time, so please raise your hand and we can address some questions here. And use the microphones. No questions? This is a very humble audience. Yeah, Tula.
Thank you very much for the very clear presentation. I would like to ask you, because Eva is very much concerned about, how you come from basic research and the discovery phase, to the innovative phase. So when you were looking at these basic phenomena in the early in your career, why did you ask the question, how can this be used? What led you to want to use your discovery?
Sorry.
I'm trying to say that when you were a young researcher, so you were looking at this chemical reaction, and you came with these polymers. And so then after you had made this discovery, you started working with, you asked yourself a question, how can this be used? Right? So why did you ask that question? What was the driving force?
Driving force?
Why did you want to make use of it?
It's a very difficult question. I think my motivation is curiosity. I have curiosities. Also, the young children, especially young children, have curiosity. Curiosity will create new idea or new concept or new discovery. So the curiosity is a very important point, I think. Okay? Okay.
Someone else? Please.
Hi, thank you very much for a very good presentation. My name is Adam, and I have a question. What do you think is the battery, lithium-ion batteries is expanding a lot now with the electrical vehicles. What do you foresee as the biggest bottleneck to be able to expand this much?
Okay. It depends on the future society. I skipped the explanation of this slide. Sorry. It depends on the scenario, future scenario. In case of this is a scenario one. In case of the current electric vehicle increase further, and finally the 100% it becomes EV. Okay, and in this case, serious issues shown here: energy density. Energy density means the driving range. Also, the cost is very, very serious issues. But I explained in this movie. This is scenario two. Other scenarios. In this case, energy density, no problem. Because in case of autonomous driving systems, it is very easy to transfer if the battery will become poor. Transfer is very, very easy. I believe only 30 seconds transfer. And next to EV waiting. So it means it realizes very quick charge in 30 seconds. So it is no problem. The second is the cost. No problems. Because by sharing, final cost drastically reduced. So it is okay. Electric vehicle is expensive. It's okay. No problems. By sharing, final cost reduced drastically. Yeah? So, but in this case, that long-time durability is very, very important issues, because one car runs 10 times, around 10 times. So the long reliability is very, very important in this scenario too. So the quite different issues in scenario one and scenario two. It is very, very nervous for me.
One more question we take here, please.
Hello. It's a big honor to be here. Thank you for your presentation and for your work. I know that there is an issue with scarcity of materials of lithium and cobalt and nickel that are used for production, for mass production of batteries. And what do you think about future? Is it possible to use some new technologies like biotechnology, like microbial fuel cells, or cells that are use principle of muscles for future development in this field?
Okay. In case of lithium battery, recycling system is very, very important in future. But in case of electric vehicle, recycling is very, very easy because in case of, on the other hand, in case of mobile IT application, it is very difficult to gather the waste battery. But in case of EVs, it's very easy. And the recycling process is technology of recycling technology. It was established already. Problem is how to gather. Only one issue. So in case of electric vehicles, recycling is very easy. Cobalt, nickel, manganese, and also lithium cation. It is easy to recycle, I think.
Thank you. I think we will get a little more angle on this from a later speaker, but I will note that it's very easy. Emma, I pass that back over to you. So, to Yoshino, thank you very much. And we'll see you again in the final panel. So we have learned now that chemistry and materials are crucial for batteries. So the next speaker, Mr. Nobuyuki Kawashima, Counselor for Special Appointment for Mitsui Chemicals, Inc., will talk about enabling future chemistry innovations for a low-carbon society. Welcome.
And thank you for your kind introduction. And then before I start, I feel very nervous. I feel kind of apology to you. I should step down, ask him to continue his talk. So, but this is my role. So let me start my talk. I'm Nobu Kawashima from with Mitsui Chemicals, and now I'm serve as chair of Energy and Climate Change Leadership Group in ICCA. I will explain later. First of all, Yoshino-san, congratulations on being awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry 2019. That is the most exciting and prestigious award for the chemical industry and Japanese. I was pleased to join on the 10th. I was very pleased to join the Nobel Prize award ceremony, and then I saw your smile long time. So I'm honored to be here to speak right after Yoshino-san. Before I forget, I would like to show my sincere appreciation to the IVA and JSPS for inviting me to this important occasion. And also thank Edward Fleetwood, Sweden-Japan Foundation, and then Suzuki-san, Japanese Embassy in Sweden, for your kind support. So, I will explain why I'm here about the Japan-Sweden Innovation Symposia, which was held in 2013 and 2014, and also Energy and Climate Change Leadership Group, ICCA. After that, I introduce our innovation report, followed by the Dr. Elizabeth Endler's speech, Future Energy Storage Technology. So this is the photo of, I think, 5 and 6 years ago. I think this symposia was co-hosted by the Sweden-Japan Foundation, IVA, JSPS, Japanese embassy in Sweden and the Chemical Society of Japan. At that time, I was executive director and secretary general of the Chemical Society of Japan. 2012, I proposed this kind of event to introduce innovations originated in Japan to Europe. Then the first speaker of the symposium was Dr. Akira Yoshino, as already he mentioned. When I asked him at the end of December 2012, he immediately responded very positively, and the event was held just 2 months later, early March 2013. I still remember that he gave a speech for 30 minutes, followed by 1 hour Q&A. So he answered clearly, completely to many answers relating to the science and technology and business, also environment and social aspect. So as already he mentioned, he declared that we need to enter an ET revolution, which stands for Environmental and Energy Technology Revolution. Believe it or not, that is just even before the SDGs were proposed by the United Nations. It's an amazing proposal. So as you can see, let's see. Okay, the Isamu Akasaki won the Nobel Prize right after his talk here. And then Yoshino-san also won the Nobel Prize. So let's see. Next candidate is Hiroaki Suga. He's a professor in Tokyo University working on the peptide synthesis for the medical drug. So that is one of the background why I am here. Okay. Also, this is unforgettable photos. So Edward Fleetwood, so here, he gave an introductory speech, and then followed by myself. Of course, Yoshino-san gave a 30-minute talk and a 1-hour Q&A. And then Bo Nomak-san moderated the panel talk. So in this occasion, somebody told me that the logo has been changed. Sorry, I used the old one. Okay, but so that is one thing. And then this, let me go into the ICCA. I'm now serving as chair of Energy and Climate Change, leadership group in ICCA. ICCA stands for International Council of Chemical Association. So the bottom of the slide showing that chemical industry added $1.1 trillion to world GDP and employed directly 15 million people. And then ICCA is the world voice of the chemical industry. So we are trying to contribute more sustainable future and ensure the safety and protection of the human health and the environment. That is our mission. So this figure, a simple figure, shows that structure of ICCA. Under the board of directors, there are 4 leadership groups: energy and climate change, responsible care, climate, chemical policy and health, communications. So ExxonMobil, BASF, and Dow are serving as the chairs, as well as ourselves, Mitsui Chemicals. Under the ENCCLG, we have 4 projects. And then I highlight enabling the future publishment. Before we enter that story, I went to Madrid last week to attend climate summit. So we had a side event as one of our advocacy activities. So industry need to face seriously about this transition. So that's what we discussed. So then this is a ENCC, LG, the kind of mission. So chemical industry play a critical role in the climate change solution. So we are contributing to reduce GHG and achieve climate goals such as Paris Agreement. So we have 2 approaches. One is ourselves need to improve the energy efficiency and intensity of our own operation. This is our own responsibility. In addition, we are putting our brightest mind to work depending on the transformational technologies and innovations that cut emissions and improve energy efficiency throughout value chain, together with partnership or collaboration with stakeholders, and then enable a society, environmentally and economically sustainable future. So this is okay. 1 month ago we published this report, innovation report. The title is "Innovating Future Chemistry Innovations for a Low Carbon Society." The objective of this report is to showcase the present and the future solutions enabled by the chemical industry and demonstrate the contributions by the future-oriented expertise toward a low-carbon society. So I put a website, okay, the ICCA website. It's easy to access by using ICCA and chemistry. Okay? If you put just ICCA, it's hard to access. ICCA and chemistry, you can access it. Top of the website, you can see this new publishment. So what we have done is that we had an intensive so-called desktop research. We reviewed 1,000 initiatives. Then we selected 137 initiatives by high impact assessment beyond 2030, not just now, in future. And then back to going to the bottom, we also classified this 137 selected initiatives into 5 sectors, which are power generation and storage, industry and production, mobility and transport. Of course, batteries is included here. Nutrition and agriculture, building and housing. So it's too detailed, but you can count. These are the 137 selected initiatives. So we classified into 5 sectors, as I mentioned. Then what we have done is the 17 exemplary solutions from the sponsor companies are presented, including a deep dive analysis with direct impact quantification in the 5 sectors. We calculated the impact. So among the 17 solutions, 2 solutions involving the battery are included. This might be a reason why I'm here. And then thank you again, Yoshino-san. Then, so to make it short, this is a kind of example of our report page relating to the battery, showing, oops, I touched some wrong one. Sorry, I don't want to repeat. Let me, okay, so this is an example of sodium-ion batteries. This is also enhanced lithium batteries contribution. So I think after my talk, Elizabeth is going to introduce our follow-up to focus on future energy storage technologies. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yes, thank you for helping me to introduce the next speaker, Dr. Elisabeth Endler, Research Program Manager for Advanced Energy Storage for Shell. So why are Shell interested in batteries? I thought you were in oil and gas. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you to everyone for allowing me to be here today. It's such an honor and a privilege. And again, thank you to the organizers, and thank you to Dr. Yoshino for really putting lithium-ion batteries on the map that enables us to talk about potentially what might be next. What are we thinking about? And so I will follow up on some details around what we chose to focus on in the ICCA report as options for going forward. I do come from our research facility in Houston. This is not investment advice. So really it comes down to energy as a whole. The question around why is an energy company looking at this, it comes back to electrification and the role that batteries have in a highly electrified energy system. The other piece that I really wanted to talk about here is to highlight the sectors that were mentioned by Mr. Kawashima, because it really does start to cross sectors, both traditional power generation as well as mobility, as we've talked about before. The other part that's really critical, in my opinion, to think about is when you start talking about not just the intersection of power generation and mobility, but you think about the different scales. We've talked about how lithium-ion batteries started in consumer electronics. And as we look at where things are coming now, whether it's residential energy storage, whether it's electric vehicles, or whether it's into the power sector at transmission, distribution, or highly centralized generation, we now are talking about different scales and vastly larger scales. And this also brings us to the intersection with the chemical industry. We now have relevant scales for multiple markets. What this slide is now talking through is the impact of battery materials in the chemical industry. So every year, the American Chemical Society's weekly news magazine, Chemical and Engineering News, puts out the global top 50. And this is by chemical sales. And what I'd like to highlight here are the companies that have battery materials, very functional, high-performance materials, whether electrodes, cathodes, and anodes, electrolytes, electrolyte salts, separators, binders. All of these companies have part of their value chain in the battery material space. It's not necessarily the majority of their business, but I did want to just take a moment to show you the range of companies in the chemical industry that are currently participating in the lithium-ion battery chain. The piece about scale that I will mention at the bottom, down at 44 and 47, Umicore and Johnson Matthey are relative newcomers to this list, and that is a sector where their battery materials is a more central part to the overall equation. So when we think about batteries and we think about the opportunity for new materials, the chemical industry broadly, oftentimes we think about these 6 dimensions. There are others that come into play, but we've talked about safety first and foremost. We've talked about energy density, power density, life, whether calendar or cycle, charging rates, and cost. All of these come together to really look and be optimized, and there are opportunities for materials. I'm showing a basic diagram of intercalation type of batteries on the right. And again, just to highlight the role of materials and chemistry in both on a mass basis, which is what the percentages are, as well as in the dotted box where a lot of the costs and or value are derived. So again, this provides an opportunity for the chemical industry. When we also think about performance and what's driving us, our search and our quest, it really is the demand by application. So really looking at performance, can we do things better than we can with the current technology? One of our academic collaborators that we work with, I thought had a really interesting perspective on it and talked about some of the earlier chemistries, the aqueous-based ones, where it's going from that to the non-aqueous, the higher voltage systems. It's the difference between starting a car and driving a car. And that ability to really move things forward has been tremendous in enabling new applications and possibilities. What I'm going to use as a guide for the rest of the talk, these are 5 areas that we highlighted in that list of 137 that were part of the ICCA report. Whether it's novel carbon materials, whether it's continued advancement of lithium-ion today, whether it's metal air, sodium, or solid state, these are the areas that were selected for further investigation. So to give you a sense of how these newer technologies are in relation to lithium-ion, I've simply plotted publications as a function of geography and by topic, just to give you a sense. Lithium-ion clearly is our leader. It is clearly supporting this transition in the as we go forward. But we're also starting to see the positions around some of these other newer technologies, and publications are a leading indicator. We don't see a lot of industrial impact in the publication list. It's predominantly universities, national labs, and other research organizations. But what you can also see with these data are how certain countries have chosen to focus or cast research across a wide net. For example, you can absolutely see the attention and leadership position that Japan has in solid state. When we talk a little bit about the different types, stationary storage was one of the primary applications for the sodium-based systems. We're very familiar with sodium sulfur, one of the leading chemistries that introduced us to solid ion conductors, as well as potentially low-cost materials. We're now looking to expand into what are typically called sodium ion batteries, and this is the case study that was referred to in the report. Really looking at, can we take some of the learnings around non-aqueous from the lithium sector, apply it, and expand our capacity to provide applications through additional chemistries. In this particular case, a lot of the research right now focuses on appropriate electrodes. We don't have a full capability to translate among systems, so there's a lot of effort going into that right now. There's also efforts going into metal air systems and trying to look, again, low-cost, light-weighting, high-performance types of materials. This is a different type of chemistry, more conversion-based rather than intercalation, and we run into some challenges around high-fidelity cycling, production of insulating intermediates, side reactions, lots of challenges, but still a fair amount of research being done to realize the potential of these systems. We could have also selected multivalent systems and redox flow systems. We chose not to, but those are areas where there is quite a lot of activity as well. And I've mentioned this in the context of stationary, but if we can get some of these technologies toward some of the more mobility-focused applications, that will also provide additional opportunities. To give now a sense of industry and patenting activity and where things are relative to chemistry, again, lithium ion is squarely in the center of things, and sodium flow and the different types of metal air are also on the map. I showed this just to help highlight some of the role of the chemical industry. What this chart is showing is assignees, who, how, when, and relative to other industries. So we see a lot of participation from the battery manufacturing, from the automobile industry, but we do still see activity from the chemical industry as well. Metal air, similar types of things, automotive industry, some startups, battery manufacturers, but also the chemical industry. Now switching to solid state, this has the potential to help us overcome some of the challenges around energy density and some of the safety challenges that have been observed. However, we're still coming along. Three primary areas, whether it's inorganic sulfides or oxides or polymeric, looking to try to target sufficiently high ionic conductivity predominantly. We'd like to be able to use them in a way so that we can have higher energy density electrodes. However, we're still having some challenges and continuing to learn about failure mechanisms that happen with, in particular, metal anodes. I'd like to just take a bit of time to highlight some work that my colleagues and I have done with collaborators, where we're looking at how do you generate some of these materials in lower energy, lower temperature synthesis routes. So I'm showing here some work that we've done to look at single-step synthesis through ball milling to get highly ionic conductive phases of sodium thiophosphate-based materials. These had, at first cycle, relatively good capacity, and we were able to cycle them at different current densities. So while still early results, we're pretty excited about the capability of looking at these systems. Again, to try to highlight the role of the chemical industry, we are still seeing the chemical industry participating alongside the automotive and battery manufacturers. Finally, to wrap up, I'd like to talk a little bit about carbon-based materials. This touches more from a power density perspective rather than an energy density perspective. On the left here, I'm showing information from Bloomberg New Energy Finance, which highlights how the fast charging capabilities are working to be incorporated into vehicles and how that's changed over the last 10 years. We've been able to start pushing the envelope more, but that isn't without trade-offs. And so what we'd like to do is be able to use new materials to help overcome whether it's thermal challenges, whether it's plating at high current densities and things of that sort. Another approach that people are taking using these tailored carbon materials is to help maintain high power that we've historically seen in supercapacitors while increasing energy density. And I'm showing in the lower right here some work that we've done in collaboration with our university partners around the use of reduced graphene oxide coupled with niobium pentoxide and as well as nitrogen-doped reduced graphene oxide on both the cathode and anode sides to, again, try to push this power density, energy density balance to help solve some of the challenges associated with high power applications. In summary, I'd like to just wrap up and say that particularly energy storage has a huge role to play as the energy system electrifies. This is true for the energy industry, it's true for the chemical industry, it's true for the automotive industry. This is really a unifying technology that crosses a lot of boundaries. If we're able to continue to make progress and have continued attention to R&D, we increase our chances for improved performance. And I'd just like to say thank you again for the opportunity and your attention.
Sorry, stay for it if you have a question. Yeah. We can have time with maybe one question to the last two speakers, or maybe to listen in particular. No one is interested in the future. I will actually come back to that in the closing remarks. So think about it. You have a second chance to address questions. So thank you very much, Elizabeth. So now we will turn to battery research in Sweden, and I will ask Professor Göran Lindberg from Royal Institute of Technology, KTH, to give us an insight what is happening in Sweden in the battery field. Welcome, Göran.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the. Is this working? Yeah. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I feel extremely humbled to stand in front of the audience here today and talk about batteries. Well, we have the inventor of the battery here, actually. So this picture here is taken about 120 years ago here in Stockholm, or possibly Norrköping. The driver is Valdemar Jungner, and it's an electric car. Valdemar Jungner had been studying in Uppsala and a bit also at KTH, and he set out to be an inventor. So one of the things he wanted to invent was better batteries. So this is actually a car powered by his own battery using nickel and iron and an ekosystem, as pointed out earlier. He was able to use this car to go all the way from Stockholm to Norrköping, which is more than 150 kilometers, without recharging the battery on the way. And he was trying to start production on this battery, but it turned out one of the limitations was actually the lifetime. In the end, it could only provide something like 5,000 kilometers or so before the battery died. A lot of things happened, and he lost control of the company and so on, but the idea lived on, and by replacing the iron electrode actually with cadmium, we're able to improve the lifetime of the battery, which turned out to be the nickel cadmium battery. And today that's an older version here. You can see over here, you can see at the Technical Museum, they have some of those. But this factory is actually still alive today in Oskarshamn, producing those type of batteries still. Otherwise, if I look back, at least during my years as a researcher in Sweden and working with electrochemistry and batteries, the interest for batteries in Sweden or in Europe in general has not been very large. We have seen actually rather that factories closing down than starting, if we look at last century. There have been a few exceptions to this. One is this small company up in Gävle, Ilar, a newer version of the still aqueous-based chemistry, nickel metal hydride. It's the same chemistry that Toyota has been using in the Prius for a long time. And we will hear very soon another good example of someone who is trying to go in the other direction. But the whole thing has actually changed these last couple of years. Now we're starting to see a much larger interest in Sweden and in Europe in general for battery and producing batteries. For a long time, I only heard from companies that, oh, if we need batteries, we can always buy them. But this has actually changed a lot. And as one example of this, I like to say we have recently started a competence center on batteries. The present name is BASE, Battery Alliance Sweden. We'll see how long that name lasts, but it's a month old or something like that. It's a collaboration between 3 universities, Uppsala University, who is leading the center, KTH here in Stockholm, and Chalmers Technical University in Gothenburg. It's also involving 15 companies, all from end users to battery manufacturers and raw material manufacturers and some startup companies and recycling companies and so on. So it's really a wide approach to this new born interest in Sweden for batteries, all aspects of batteries actually. So I mean, we have the idea that it helps a lot, and we all already heard about the importance of batteries when it comes to fossil-free society. Also, this about electromobility and creating jobs and so on in Europe and Sweden. So we have looked very much at the initiatives in Europe, trying to align our program with what's happening in Europe with this Battery 2030 Plus program. We try to, together with industry, form the projects here, and also that the PhD students that we will educate in this program will be useful out in the industry once they graduate. So we can see we have looking at new battery and cell concepts beyond lithium-ion batteries. We're looking at what we could say smart batteries, but also about modeling and characterization of batteries. So as I see it, one of the problems with or limitations when it comes to using in batteries is actually this that we I should say it here that within the center we're trying to cover the whole circle of batteries, all the way from raw materials, making those materials useful in batteries, manufacturing batteries, but then also looking at the use of batteries and second life of batteries, recycling and so on, and covering the whole circle of battery. And we have different companies involved in the different parts of this development. So one of the challenges, and it's already been addressed today, is this about the raw materials and the sustainability of also of battery production. I learned yesterday that we have 89 billion trees in Sweden, roughly. And part of it, most of it, using the cellulose to make paper and paper-based products. But there are other things in the cellulose, in the biomass that we're actually not making much use of. One of them is lignin. We're starting to have a lot of interest in lignin, making polymers and other things. So just as a flavor of what you could do is that we have actually made carbon fibers based on lignin. And this is one example using, go back here, using electrospinning of carbon fiber based on lignin, so you can make electrodes like this. So this is one example of how you could use renewable raw material for batteries instead of using graphite for your batteries, and just example here showing that, yes, it can be used as a the presentation earlier today, we heard the importance of the negative or the anode in the lithium-ion batteries, and this is one example of using a renewable feedstock for using a battery. And we can see that it's possible to use not only for lithium, but also for sodium or even potassium. Even if we, as we heard earlier, we might drop a bit in capacity or in energy density when we're going to sodium compared to lithium, but we're getting the possibility to use raw materials and cheaper materials using that. We see one other key for reducing the energy consumption for transport is actually to go towards lightweight. We know in airplanes, if we take the Boeing here, about half of that is made of carbon fibers or composites. We heard at the meeting yesterday also talking about the importance of lightweighting in the transportation sector. And carbon fiber composites is a possibility to actually achieve that. The other example here is a BMW also using carbon fibers for making a lighter structure. So one idea that we're working on is actually to combining these two ideas. We have the carbon fiber, which could work as an electrode material, but we also have the possibility to actually use it as a for mechanical strength in our work. So really looking at the composite, carbon fiber composite of the battery, there's a lot of similarities. So this is what we're trying to make use of. The idea is actually to make a laminated structure where you be using carbon fibers as electrode materials, and the matrix, which is used for the mechanical rigidity of the material, is also used as an electrolyte. This is something we call a structural battery. Maybe the battery isn't as good as a pure battery, this combined function, and maybe the mechanical properties are sacrificed slightly, but together what we see is that we can actually gain a total weight of the system by integrating the battery with the mechanical structure. So this is the idea that parts of a vehicle could be also a battery. So part of the mechanical structure could also be a battery. So this is what we call a structural battery. And using this approach, you could think about the laminated structure, but you could also think about actually creating a battery cell around each individual carbon fiber, and in that way have a much freer form for how you're making your battery. Okay, so that's a bit about new concepts, new ideas. I think of equal importance as being able to produce good batteries is to be able to use them in a good way. As it is today, many times, it's difficult to predict the properties of the batteries. So to be on the safe side, you add more batteries than you actually need, which adds weight, adds cost to your application. So maybe you put more batteries than you actually need in your car because you're unable to predict how it will behave in a certain situation. So the other side of battery development, I would say, and of especially linked to electromobility, but also to using batteries in the grid, for example, is to be able to predict properties and integrate them in a good way. And there we have another center in Sweden called the Swedish Electromobility Center. It's been running for, I think, 14 years now, 13, 14 years. We're now into the fourth stage of this. So the idea is to integrate the users of battery, especially with focus now on the electromobility, which we saw earlier, it's actually what is driving battery development today, and where we can expect the largest volume the next coming years. In the center, we have 5 universities. It's partly funded by the Energy Agency, and then we have the automotive industry and also some other companies. And what we started to see, and I like to connect to what Elizabeth talked about earlier, that we actually see this connection between the automotive industry and the power industry, because if we want to charge our electric cars, it also has implications on the electrical grid and so on. So in this center, when we started, we had a lot of, most of the focus was actually on the vehicle, how to integrate the battery, electric machine, how to control the inside the vehicle. But over the years, we have seen that the limitations are moving away from the actual vehicle into how it can be integrated into society. And this is also reflecting on the 5 thematic areas we have here, where the last 2 has been added more recently, where we're also looking at the environmental impact, but also how a vehicle is connected to the grid and the implications of this. So going all the way, trying to cover all the essential things related to electromobility. I should also say that it all started looking at road vehicles, but we now also have started to look at other applications like ships and boats, and also to aircrafts, because we can see that these are coming challenges that we could imagine that we have electromobility as an important part as well. So one of the an example just to show our lack of understanding, really, of deep understanding many times, when it or at least the lack of being able to predict properties. I'm taking an example here. This is from a collaboration within this center, where we have worked universities together with automotive industry. This is showing just what happens with a battery when you charge it, depending on how you charge it, how fast you charge it. So going from charging it roughly at 1 hour, half an hour, 20 minutes, or 15 minutes. And we can see that going from charging the battery in half an hour to going down to 20 minutes, the lifetime of battery is dropping drastically. And if we try to do it in 15 minutes, we're more or less killing the battery immediately. Okay, so that's one thing we learn. But then we, of course, would like to understand why this happens, to be able to in better detail look at it. And now my most scientific figure here. So what this is illustrating is that we measure the impedance, sort of the internal resistance of the battery. And of course, you want to have a low internal resistance of your battery for it to work well. And we can see that, okay, when the battery is aging, the resistance is increasing. But the interesting thing here, or the difficult thing here, is that if we take the battery apart and we look at the different parts inside the battery, different on this cell, what we can see is that it has actually aged very differently at different places. So it's not at all a uniform aging on the battery. It depends very much where we are in the battery, which means that if we want to predict the behavior of the battery and understand this, we have actually to know what happened at each individual place in the battery. It's not enough to see the overall properties of the battery. We must go inside and have a very close understanding of what's happening. And to do that, an important tool is actually modeling. And we can go all the way from simple models, which means that if computational time, we could use this what we call equivalent circuits model, very simple models in a way. Many times they are sufficient to explain, to say how will the battery behave in a certain situation. But it's not telling us anything about the actual chemistry, or what's the aging mechanisms inside the battery, or how we can improve the battery, or it can't even be a help for the design of the battery. So what we need to do is actually to go and have more and more advanced detail models, and we're going in what we would call more of physical-based models, where we actually take both the geometry, but also chemical, electrochemical reactions, transport processes, conductivities, and so on into account, which means that they're getting more and more demanding when it comes to computational time, but they're also getting better and better to predict the performance. However, a challenge here is that, of course, when we add the complexity of the models, we're getting more and more parameters, and to identify those parameters becomes a challenge. But only as an example, what you could do with this type of models is that taking a typical battery that is sitting in an electric vehicle today, if you put a demand cycle This is for a typical hybrid application. So you're charging, discharging, depending on how you're driving. So this is a synthetic cycle to test the battery. And then we put temperature probes at different positions in the cell, because likely much of the aging is related to that. We have different temperatures in different places in the battery. This will be very difficult to measure inside. A battery is a closed unit. It's very hard to know the situation at different places in the battery. But what you can do then is that you can make a model of this. And so looking at the detailed geometry of your cell, which is done here, then you can simulate the temperature inside by combining these different physical-based models. And you can then predict the temperature, and you can compare it with the outside temperature. And actually, we have, if you go to conferences, battery conferences, and people do modeling of batteries, they say they're using COMSOL models. It turns out that COMSOL is a company located walking distance from here, which is the leading company when it comes to model batteries. So we have very good competence when it comes to modeling batteries actually in Sweden. So I take this as an example of soft knowledge about batteries, that it's not only about producing batteries, but it's also about being able to use them in a good way. So I think I will stop here and just say that, of course, all the research we're doing is due to a lot of funding from these different agencies. And once again, thank you for listening and for the invitation.
So do we have a question for Göran? You're so shy. That makes it easy for me to keep the time, actually. Yeah. But again, we will have a last round with all the speakers on the stage, so you can think about, if you have a question, save it. Thank you, Göran.
Thanks.
So the next speaker, we are going to talk about battery development production ecosystem in Europe. And we have Dr. Emma Nerenheim from Chief Environmental Officer for Northvolt. Northvolt is the first unicorn company in Sweden in manufacturing. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. And a special thank you to Dr. Yoshino, not only for the speech, obviously, today, but also for giving that fantastic visit in our factory this morning, for giving all the staff, all the people from Japan who is there to supervise, to start up the machines, to give them that encouragement, to give them the attention, their faces, happy, starstruck. You should have been there, I can assure you. We are gonna live on this for so long. So really great. Again, thank you. I'm going to talk about Northvolt, our role in Europe, and what we are about to do the coming years, what we've done so far. But starting in the more serious end and starting in the end where Peter told me when I joined 2.5 years ago that I want you to not be the environmental leader and spokesperson. I want you to make sure that our technology, our factories, our recycling, everything that we do has the technology, the advancement, the patents, everything needed to make a green factory. That's why I'm here. My background is from ABB, but also I was a professor in environmental engineering. So I was fully committed ideologist in environment. There are a few things that's happening right now, and I think we all heard about climate change, but I just want to stress that if we do not pursue this, we are in a game-changing position right now. Either we fully do this, we all join hands, we go together, we make sure that we do this transition, that we quit polluting the environment, especially with fossil fuels, or we're going to end up in a really tricky situation where we can't turn this around. And that's the truth. And if we look back millions of years in history, and we've seen what happened to the dominating species when when the biological diversity decreases in the pace that it's doing right now, where we have desertification, where we have all these weather storms that the civilization is not prepared for, and so on, and so on. There's so many examples. There is thousands of evidence, so please spread that message. The good thing is that we don't have an energy problem on the planet. We have a surplus of energy. We have endless amounts of energy. And we have spent quite a lot of time in finding renewables ways to produce energy. So producing energy means that renewable energy means that we can use it, but the problem is, when can we use it? Where can we use it? And the key now, as we've talked about in the previous speeches, is to make sure that we can transmit, distribute, and also move that energy in time. And that's storage, right? Back in the days when Peter and Paolo started talking about coming back to Europe, so the founders of this company, they sat in California, worked both at Tesla, and discussed how can we enter Europe and what is needed in Europe. And they looked at Europe and said, so we have one of the finest car manufacturing industries in the world. They are far behind, looking at Asia, looking at US. Europe is behind in terms of electrification, despite the fact that they had such an advanced car manufacturing industry. And they thought about the different parameters needed to do this transformation also in Europe. And they figured that the key was in taking responsibility of scale, so offering scale to those car manufacturers, offering an integration. They had both been responsible for various parts of the supply chains in Tesla, building raw material supply chain, equipment supply chain, building factories and so forth, understanding that Europe cannot be dependent on batteries that has a very distributed supply chain across the globe. If you want to go scale in EV manufacturing, then you also have to go scale in battery manufacturing in Europe and also integrate the material production, coming closer to the mines, being closer to the raw materials. And the third thing, you also have to take a little bit more responsibility, and not only a little bit, you have to take a lot of responsibility, because the European market is very sensitive to environment and sustainability, obviously. And since then, since they decided to start Northvolt, a lot of things have happened. So the entire Europe, together with BO and the European Battery Alliance, together with all other initiatives, companies, other stakeholders, countries, cities, have promised various things and committed to this transition. So what we see now is that there is no longer, and this is just happening in a couple of years, a doubt that Europe will be fully electrical and will do this transition together. And we serve this market with our company to build battery factories. We started with cells, and I'm going to come back to how that has now grown. But the basic idea was to make sure that there was an availability of lithium-ion battery cells from known technology, but technology in the forefront within the European boundaries. It's about doing it green, it's about doing it with the latest technology, as I said, but also it's about doing it together. So joining hands with the car manufacturers, joining hands in building the new engine of that car. Because if you think about it, if you compare a combustion engine car with an EV car, the engine itself is far simpler. The number of moving parts is far less. So the whole sort of technology forefront in the car is actually within the battery chemistry. So you can imagine that this is something that is a little bit tricky. If you have the best car engine in the world, you have the best car with the highest quality, you want to be able to affect and control the battery that goes into the car. So joining hands with the car manufacturers was the fourth thing that was really key for Northvolt starting this. We're not only supporting the automotive segment for various reasons. The portable segment is very interesting for us, primarily because the portable segment has been buying batteries for 30 years, which means for a newcomer like us, it's a great market to have as a collaborator for developing test protocols, for understanding everything that can go wrong in this. Industrial segment is also incredibly interesting, and we already have a long gone collaboration with Epiroc, where we build battery systems for mining industry. And why would we want to do that? From a sustainability perspective, that's brilliant, because since we are putting our factory here in Sweden, we are fully integrated. So we produce all the materials for the factory on hydropower and wind power. That means our carbon footprint for the production is basically zero. But the raw materials coming from the mining industry obviously has a footprint, and a lot of that footprint is from the trucks and the vehicles in the mining operations. If we go fully electrical there, we further decrease the carbon footprint. And the fourth segment is grid. And it's obvious, and several of you talked about it before, that the grid segment also needs to join hands to make sure that we can always utilize all the renewable energy coming into the grid by storing also on the grid. We started in Sweden, and we started 2.5 years ago when I started. We were in the site selection process for one site for building one factory. And after just a few months, it became 2 sites, because we decided that we wanted to put our gigafactory where we had 100% hydropower, but that we also wanted to put the test facility close to Stockholm, close to where the innovation hubs are for automation, for AI, and for those kind of surrounding technologies that we need to create a modern battery. And since then, we also started a Polish factory for the battery systems production. That's the mining industry collaboration. And also we have announced the German factory in Salzgitter together with Volkswagen. This is a rendering of the Skellefteå plant. What we see here is 2 upstream lines and 4 downstream lines, and then we have the formation here. We now are building the first 2 blocks, and so that's 16 gigawatt hours, and we are applying for the permit for the second part, which is actually, we decided to put it a little bit bigger. So we extended the upstream part, we extended and made, and we will build 1 more downstream line, and we will also build the material preparation for the German factory. So we are preparing for 40 gigawatt hours up in Skellefteå. This is what it looks like now. The lovely Swedish winter. The first upstream is up. It's 100 times 200 meters and 34 meters high. And this is where we were this morning, together with Dr. Yoshino, in the small factory, which is actually one of the bigger factories in Västerås, but it's a small factory compared to the gigafactory, where we in the same way are building the material preparation in the upstream line, the high building, solar mixing, coater is here, and then we go to formation here. So it's a full industrial line. It has all the production steps, full scale, but it's not optimized, it's not giga. But it's meant to be close to our test lab, to ship out cells that have been demonstrated in full scale, fast. And it's happening this week, actually. Close to it, we have the very advanced laboratory. In this laboratory, we can produce any kind of cell. We can test new materials. We can test new chemistries together with the customers. And if we like them, we can industrialize them basically the week after. So it's a very good opportunity to combine the big group of Japanese and Korean experts who are developing the battery chemistry here together with the industrialization plant. And that's something that is very unique. Our first rendering of the German factory, which we are very proud of. We're also very proud that we managed to convince Volkswagen that we could actually name it Northvolt 2. So it's a 50-50 joint venture together with Volkswagen, and it's rolling out just right after the Northvolt 1 factory, factory in Skellefteå. And this is from the Polish production of the battery packs. So the sub packs look like this, and then they go into a full, a big system for the mining operation machine. It's a very advanced laboratory, and we actually have systems working in the mining as we speak. And it's built in modules, so it's easy to scale, and the systems are easy to scale independent of applications, so the different modules can go either into a mining operating machine or into a grid storage rack. But the chemistry in the cell is not necessarily the same. So the chemistry is depending on the application, if you want a high power output or if you want a live cell. And then the latest star in the family of the Northvolt business unit is recycling. And we mentioned it several times before, but it's actually, as Dr. Yoshino said, very easy to recycle metals because they're elements. And this is, if anyone asks you, this is the fundamental difference between EV fleet in Europe and the combustion engine fleet. Because by definition, metals can be recycled as elements. By definition. What we are building here is a collaboration where we will return the battery at its end of life. We will crush them. We will separate the different materials as much as we can. And then when we have something called the black mass, meaning that we have separated the foils, the copper foils and the aluminum foils, and we have the black mass left, we will leach that. And from that leachate, we will use solvent extraction to extract the different materials that are valuables. The good thing is with this, when the materials come out from the hydrometallurgical production, they are metal salts. So they can actually be fed directly into the upstream part of the factory, which is something that is also limiting the material preparation on the upstream part for us. So we are not only cutting steps in the recycling by putting it close to the battery factory, we're actually also cutting some production steps in the material preparation. Key here is, of course, to collect. So in order to do this, we have to really join hands with our customers and make sure that everyone understands that by returning a cell to us, we have a more sustainable cell, we have a cheaper cell at the next generation of battery production. So that's key. And also the second thing that will be key in order to do this in a fully sustainable way is to make sure that we can trace all this. So the batteries that come back, if we know exactly where they come from, where the raw material was extracted, what was the original footprint of that battery, how was it produced, how was it performing in its life, and so forth. If we know that, going into recycling, going into the next generation of battery production, understanding how to optimize not only the production, but also how to use the battery, how to build the systems, and as Göran talked about, how to size the batteries. We can also contribute to building more advanced batteries in the future, of course. And also, while the batteries are working in the field, we can also be connected and support that operation. So connected batteries and connected solutions together with our customers. That's the whole scope of the entire Northvolt idea. Thank you.
So, questions? Yes.
Name is Radetsky, and I have two questions to Emma. The first one is, who took the initiative to start this enterprise? Who were the individuals or organizations who decided on it? Second question is, who are the owners of the company at the present time? Thank you.
That you can easily answer.
Yes, the founder of the company was Peter Karlsson. He's the CEO of the company now.
And who is Peter Karlsson?
Okay, so Peter Karlsson came from, he studied in Luleå Technical University here in Sweden. He then started working as a quality manager in northern Sweden. He worked for NXP Singapore, he worked for Tesla for many years, he worked for Ericsson for some time. In Tesla he was in the management team together with Elon Musk for 6 years, working together with Paolo on building the factories, the supply chain. For Tesla, was involved in the entire from Roadster all the way through to the Model S. Peter had a lot of discussions when he wanted to start a company together with Volkswagen, so he was quite convinced that this would fly. Yes. That's
Owners?
Owners today, Volkswagen, some equity investors, Vargas Holding, and the employees.
And IKEA.
IKEA.
Yeah.
And you. There are many.
Small company.
Equity investors, but yeah.
Okay. Other questions? Please. Sure. Oh, so okay. You take the microphone between the chairs.
Yes. How difficult or costly would it be to change technology in the factory if some other type of battery will win the market, so to speak?
Well, it depends what you mean with change the factory. With the current setup that we have, we foresee that we can do quite significant changes in the battery technology, not only the chemistry, but in the battery technology, and also in our roadmap. We have a long-term future. We are not worried about that. We just talked about it this morning, actually, outside the factory door.
Okay. Then I will actually one more question we can take. Otherwise, okay. There over. Press the button. Yes.
Now everybody can hear me. Thanks, Emma, for the presentation. I'm really happy to hear that the commitment to the environment, sustainability. I have two questions. First question is where are the raw material from? The impact to the environment. And my second question is, will your organization have time and resources to support AI innovation for the startups to do some AI for good? Thank you. Since I'm co-founder of AI Hub, that's why I ask these questions. Thank you.
I want to take the last one first. So we have a great team working with the data model and the AI development, led by Landon Mossberg, who also built the systems, the same system data model for Tesla. So please reach out to him. He will tell you all about he has a very extensive team with experts. When it comes to raw materials, it's a very good question. It's also the most frequent question I ever get. So I know the answer, don't worry. We source raw materials from mining companies, and then we make sure that we understand where the batches of those raw materials come from. We have decided that we want to go with either companies who already have a sustainability plan and that support our entire package of different policies in that area, or companies who are on the road of understanding what is about to happen here, so they commit to a number of improvements that we have put on them. We can either source directly from a mining company that also has refineries. So that's one option. Or we can source from a mining company and then retoll it through a refinery. So this is how we control what we buy. And the second most frequent question that I'm asked is, what about DRC? So this is what you're all thinking about, I suppose. So I'll put that for you. We are currently not buying in DRC, but we are there. Me and Paolo travel there, and we try to understand if it is possible. We haven't found a good mine yet, but we are interested in supporting DRC, and we are we have understood that it's important that Europe do not abandon DRC. So we are committed to trying to find something. We're not there yet. Thank you.
Okay, please stay here, and I will ask the other speakers to come up to the stage also for a little final round of summaries here. So if you please gather around these two tables, and I'll take this one in isolation. Yeah. So now this is a very interesting session because my role in InnoEnergy is to look at strategies. And in that work is very important to be better than other people to predict the future. So I will take advantage of this skilled group of people to help me in my job. So the question I will give it to all of you and ask you to answer with a brief statement is that if you look at battery development in the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see there? And I'm happy to receive any comments, I mean, along the 6 parameters that Elizabeth showed so nicely there. Please, if we start with Kawashima-san, what do you see?
Okay, I think not a really technical point of view, but it is expected that population in Asia and Africa will increase, and the middle class also keep rising from now on. So in such situation, the lithium-ion battery is a key to realize the circular economy and the sustainable society that already Yoshino-san mentioned by implementing into energy storage application and constructing the whole value chain system, including the recovery and recycling. Now you, Emma-san, already explained. So robust development will not be expected if the future will be just an extension of the current situation. In any sectors, including the energy storage, it is quite important to imagine the future social pain and to think of new and ambitious business model. To realize such a future model, it is required to challenge the technology revolution or innovation. So I wish and hope that new Yoshino-san will appear and emerge in near future. That is my thought.
Thank you. So Göran, what is your view on this?
It takes time for new technologies to be mature enough to be put into demanding applications like cars or the electrical grid. So I foresee that the lithium-ion battery will be quite dominating for some time, even if we will see development of sodium batteries, solid-state batteries, or even more advanced multivalent batteries and so on. So for the next 5-10 years, I still see the lithium-ion battery as a dominating battery. But I also see that maybe this is like swearing in the church, but I also see that there are limitations for batteries. So I see that we must also follow other paths, like the hydrogen economy, for example. So batteries alone won't be able to solve all the problems related to the renewable grid and so on. So I also see development of electrolysis, of fuel cells and so on, linked to electrofuels and so on, linked to renewables as well as a complement to battery. They're not competing with batteries, but they're actually fulfilling other duties than batteries will do.
Thank you. Emma?
Yes, I just want to say that I fully agree with Göran, and I don't think that we should ever think about what will happen, because as long as we haven't solved the fossil fuel question, everything should be considered as being placed on the market. But with your question, Bo, we see also obviously that lithium-ion chemistry will be the chemistry for the coming generation. We also see that there is a lot of technology development within the battery, and not only cathode. We hear a lot about cathodes. We hear a lot about solid state and so forth. But there are many components within a battery that will need to be developed: the anode, the the electrolyte, the form and shape. We are looking at various formats right now. There are debates about the size of the battery, will modules sustain, and so forth. And also, I just want to mention that there are lots of research needed on the practical things. I've been in the future. I've been to the seminars in Norway, which is the little small future of Europe, and it's a lot about making sure that we have fast chargers enough, driving range. I had a chat just recently with J.B. Strouwell about this, and he was, if you remember, the one who said that let's not swap batteries, let's make sure we can charge fast. Charging fast will be key. So I think that's where some technology development will really happen there.
And Elizabeth, of course, you want things to develop fast so we can get out of oil.
So in my mind, I think it really comes back to the electrification broadly.
Yeah.
So in the next 5 years, we're really at a point now where we've got batteries at scale, where we can really start to drive different use cases and understand what the needs are for these battery technologies. So in my mind, I see this as laying the groundwork for the technologies that we've been studying to really help to focus on where do we want to take these as we look to increase electrification more broadly. For 10 years, I think it's still an open question because we have so many options that are promising at this point, which is incredibly exciting. And I think coming back to the point about commercialization, we know technology commercialization of new technologies, particularly when there is one that works very well, that will take effort and commitment on a number of levels.
Okay. Before I ask you, I would like a slide here coming up.
Here? No.
Because, as you mentioned, that we had a seminar here in 2013 in this room. And then we had a Q&A session that was 1 hour. One of the questions I put actually to Dr. Yoshino was that in US, they have a program called 555, which means in 5 years, batteries will have 1/5 of the price and energy density 5 times. And you gave an answer, which was this one. Maybe 533. So now we will see the result. And this, now comes the result. What happened actually? We know the answer. If you look at cost, the answer is 3.7. Which is okay. It's if we look at energy density, it's a little trickier, but I can tell you at that time there were not so many electric cars on the streets. One of them was Nissan Leaf. So let's take a look at Nissan Leaf. 2.6. I think this is a good, I mean, it's okay. So with this... So with this background, of course, my question is, Dr. Yoshino, next 5 years.
I think. Okay, I think the next 5 years is a very important period because I think the next 5 years induction period to next revolutions. And I said IT revolution started from 1995. Next revolution will start 2025. I think because such as, for example, autonomous driving technology, according to their roadmap, target is 2025. And also the other new technology, such as 5G technology or AI technology, almost target is scheduled in 2025. So I think the next 5 years induction period to next new world, right? And so I think so it is very important what happened after 2025. And during next 5 years, we should develop many materials, especially in case of cathode materials, the 811 cathode materials is very, very important, but it is very difficult to use practically. And, so it is very important point is, can I use 811 during next 5 years? It's one point. And another materials, the main material will be graphite. And how many percentage of silicon can I use? And I think it's enough, 8%. It's enough, I think. So during these next 5 years, we should succeed in new cathode material and new anode materials. Then from 2025, there are many new world will appear, I think.
So we have to broaden the question, and maybe Nobel Prize for 2028 will be for autonomous driving then. So, thank you all, and we will have some closing remarks now if you stay on the stage, and we have some closing remarks from Lars Hultman, CEO, Swedish Foundation for Strategic Research, SSF. I ask the speakers to stay on the stage. Yes. Please stay.
So, dear esteemed Nobel laureate, Mr. Ambassador, presidents, speakers, organizers, and ladies and gentlemen, here's a message from the sponsor and a mini lecture from the physics professor. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was Big Bang, and lithium was formed. You may know this, but lithium is the primordial element produced in the Big Bang, more or less only then. It is formed during nucleosynthesis, and very little new lithium is actually developed and produced during the lifetime of a star. Some is produced, but is destroyed in the same rate by impact of protons and neutrons, forming helium. And we have a lot of helium in the galaxy. So the lithium we use is brother and sister atoms to that present now in the exoplanets, if we were ever to go there for mining. In that sense, lithium is not a renewable element over a galactic time frame. So there is so much reason to be in awe of this precious element. So here comes my closing remarks for the seminar. We owe it to Dr. Yoshino for opening the door to lithium-ion battery technology and for pointing out the important road towards its ecosystem. The situation obviously craves a lot of lithium. And here we do need, as was mentioned today in the discussion, green mining and recycling. I now feel very intellectually and fully charged, and I pledge to engage to continue supporting battery and energy-related materials research. Excellence, innovation, and sustainability will be the legacy of this seminar. And on behalf of the organizers and sponsors of this seminar, including the Swedish Foundation for Strategic Research, but also the Swedish Japan Foundation, I thank you all for attending. Thank you.
Then some final remarks. First, we have some gifts from Eva to the panelists. So if you stay here on the floor, and while the gifts are handed out, I can give some practical information, because following this we will have on the next floor, we'll have a common applaud later when they all have the gifts. We have on the next floor we have glögg, which is well known to the Swedish people, but it's actually a sort of wine that we prepare together with some spices. And in my manuscript, it says you can drink it hot or cold. Forget about the cold. We drink it hot. And it's during Christmas time we use this glögg. So now I think it's time to give a final applause to all the speakers and thank them very much. And you're all welcome upstairs.